Hello. Oh, for anybody who's here, we're just gonna get started. I just wanted to play the game, honestly. It's been way too long since I've played Stellar Blade, so I kind of just, I don't know, have no intro, just get the game in. So, hello, happy Friday, I'm here. It's blazing hot. You guys might hear a little bit of a fan going on. If you do, sorry. If not, good. But, it has been, how long has it been since I played this game? Like, a month? Not a bit longer than that? Alrighty. I forgot what we're doing. I know we just got like we got a gun. How do I use it? That's how I use a gun. Yeah, I got a gun. Got a sexy costume too. And what's going on? I don't fucking know. How do I check the map here again? I already forget. There we go. Go to the safe house. Talk to Lily. Who's Lily? Are you Lily?
I want to go to the wasteland too. Or do you think I'd just get in the way?
Balenya?
Lily, I have to ask you something. I found someone who's been injured very badly. She's too weak to speak, and there's no chance of her moving. The technology here won't do. Do you think
Oh, I remember who Enya is. It's the robot girl, right?
Yes, but do you really think this is a good time?
The people here, they have negative feelings towards the colony.
Mm.
Many of them think they were abandoned. I want them to see that our mission isn't just for the sake of appearances. Our mission is to save mankind.
Ah, yep. Typical Eve. I can give it a try, but I can't guarantee a complete recovery.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Also, there's a lot I'll need to prepare.
Like what?
I understand. Just tell me what you need.
I'll send over the list.
The
And
least.
please try not to spend too much time on this.
The least.
After all, we still
The
have a mission.
Sorry, the list.
I know. Thank you.
Okay. I love the bird. 3 mind map copies, extreme nano elements, which I don't have. Take photos of butterflies in the wasteland, I don't have. Take photos of cats in G and Cheyenne, which I think we're here. The client's wife sleeping in the cradle. And wait, okay. So there's hidden cat. Let's take a look first. What's this? Oh, it's a note. A note for the protocol. Ugh. Dying angel. Your protocol was for your turn around. Nativus. Venetus. Being merciful. What is over here?
I'm too far from Adam.
Shut up. Adam and Eve, I get it, but come on. Can I not go back in? Or can I? Can I not? Need to find some hidden kitty. Ooh. What's down here? What do we have here? Huh. What is down here? Like nothing? Actually nothing? I assume I can't go down there. So what the fuck? What the fuck? There's gotta be a reason for this in the future. Probably not right now though. There's hidden cats around here is what people are saying. Who's this? It's a lumberjack thing. Oh, it just gives me free SP? Hell yeah. to interact with here is a big nope. Yeah, don't I have to touch these to get fast travel unlocked? These Bayern Weissbier Dunkel, whatever that is.
What is this thing? It looks so strange.
Greetings, delicious Lantina.
That's a can.
What's a
In the
Lantina?
past, it was used as a
Hi,
container
Ruby.
for electrolyte solutions.
A can? I like it. I can read a variety of data from this. It isn't much, but I can still feel traces of memories in it.
Latina.
It's a description or an advertisement for the electrolyte solution. Funny seeing you so interested in some old item. Well, they're kind of pretty in their own way. But if you're that worried about it,
How you
why
doing
don't
though?
I
How's
make
your
a
Friday?
cabinet to store them?
I guess technically it's your Saturday
As
now.
long as it's not a burden for you.
Oh, this is easy as pie for the one and only Lily Artemis. I'll prepare it right away. Let's make a collection together.
Thank you, Lily.
An event? What event? Oh, FanFest? Dionysus! Two hours, isn't it? Isn't it 4 hours from now? Because I know one of my streamer friends initially had plans to go live, and then they're like, wait, I read the time wrong. They have to go live at midnight Pacific time. Kitty! Where is it? "5 a.m. pre-party." Oh, okay. There we go. Photograph a cute cat. Sleep at 6 to 8. So you're gonna be missing out or losing sleep is what you're saying. One of the two. I'll have to catch all this stuff later. Probably catch a video about it in a couple hours. Probably when I wake up tomorrow. That's my assumption. As much as you can afford to lose. I mean, you could obviously always just catch the VOD later, right? Because I'd imagine it's going to be live streamed because Final Fantasy 14 live streams basically all their content. Like if it's like important updates and stuff. Tina just when it was a party. Oh, okay. Kitty. I think it's gonna be facing this way, right? Is the party in-game? Is that what's going on? Is that why you don't want to miss it? That's fair. It's in-game. What am I getting? That's cool though. Gotta dress up in adventure attire. Oh, so you have to like, they want you to, is this like a in-game thing where they're like, hey, dress up in like your battle gear? Or is it like a venue that's like, hey, you know, the theme is this? That makes sense. That's fair. Actually, don't know what my character's canon outfit was when I played. Poster. We curse you, is that what that says? Yep. Kitty! I should just not do this, because it's just gonna take me forever. What else do I have though? Wasteland. Where is the cradle at again? Is it here? It is here, okay. All you had was Giara. That's fair. I mean, Giara could be very much an adventurer's outfit, but I know exactly what they're saying. It's not quite that. It's more like you need, you know, what they consider to be combat gear, which it could be stylized, but there needs to be some function to it. Every now and then I feel like I want to get back to 14, but then I realize probably not. I don't have time. Like, I think until the new expansion comes in, where they not like remove the daily system, but upgrade it to where it's not just the daily system, I think I'm probably not gonna bother with playing it for now, because it's too much grinding to do. I don't want to miss out on like materials and everything. Trying to make a Kiara style tank. Ooh. Sorry, I was making myself a little bit bigger because I realized I'm a little small. Am I going the wrong way? Oh yeah, she's way back there. How's my day? My day's going pretty okay, honestly. Oh, that's how I bought that. Okay. It has been very, very hot. It still is very hot, but it's bearable, honestly. I can buy this when it gives me everything. But yeah, besides that, I regenerate. Didn't really do too much today. Charge blaster rail. Oh, it's a charge attack, okay. Oh, hacking tool. Yeah, I need this. What does this do? Different weapons, but this is more utility. Kind of want to learn utility for now. I learned the Stinger missile though. Yeah. New outfits? Where? Oh, these. Ooh. Oh my god, I can just straight up. Oh my god. Yeah, sorry. I'm a sucker for it. I'm a sucker for bunny suits. It's got the open back too. Oh my god. Let me in. So where's the dude at? All the way across to the right. Oh. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what happened today. It's just not much. Just like not that I forgot what happened, but it's just like so little happened that I'm trying to think. Like, did I just like fall asleep for like 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 10 hours, and have nothing happen? The answer was no. I didn't fall asleep, but I don't know. Confused.
Let's see. If I enter the name in the life support device.
You're just fucking hot, man. That's what I am. Favorable sleep mode. Don't come looking for me. Run away, you idiot. That's my fan, by the way. I have it closer to my neck to make some of my sweat evaporate right now.
What's this message?
So she's okay. Her cheeks are just out. I just realized. People are gonna think I'm a gooner just because I like bunny suits. But I just like bunny suits. Maybe my next outfit will be the swimsuit. I don't know. Let me in! I love that emote. Because I used it during the Super Princess Peach playthrough, and people that are actually typing Peach's name properly with a capital letter, just straight up. They'd be like, what the fuck? I just realized it's been like almost 2 years since Super Princess Peach. No, it's not Super Princess Peach, Princess Peach Showtime. Super Princess Peach has been like 15 years. No, let's get out of here now. Let's actually leave this place. Wait, I need to report it. I'm stupid. Wait, can I fast travel over there? I can't. Is this actually fast? Pretty fast. This way, right? Oh, behind me. Wait, what is this? It's this way? Oh, it is that way. Oh, also, is this what's it called?
Retro.
This fucking
But I'll be able to see
event
just
or
what
whatever. Are they gonna announce new
information
characters
passes
for the new classes this game or this one? Has it already been that long? No, right? going to the wasteland. We're gonna go there anyways, so
Look
let's
forward to my
get
week in
that.
Wasteland.
And more wasteland. Okay.
That's unfortunate. Should I help?
So everything except for the cats is in the wasteland. I think. Let me double check. Wasteland, wasteland, wasteland. Wasteland, wasteland. Yep. Cool. I keep trying to press the button to open the map, but that's not how you open the map. Oh, so I have to go here, then I go to the wasteland. Got it. So story has to happen before they let me. Can. Oh, it's nano element. Ooh, extreme nano element. It's extreme. Oh, I have everything I need now. Nice. Who's cooking? I'm stuck. Kitty. I don't want it. Muscle memory, man. Sorry, that one was too easy. I couldn't ignore it. Where the hell am I going? Fucking hell. Oh, the wrong way. That's where I'm going. Books. Secret code? Okay. It's very clearly the code is like pressed in a certain order. Yeah, it looks like it's a code, which I don't think I have. I just leave for now. I just went the wrong way. I had to go right. Here than this way. This is the exit. Look at that. Alright. Safe house first, and then we go to the wasteland in the story is my assumption. So, speak to Adam? Is that what I'm doing?
I brought back what you asked for. Here.
Great work, Eve. How was your walk around the city?
It looked a little sad.
Adam's voice kind of
So
pisses
much
me
empty
off.
Space. Anyway, let's go to the wasteland, Adam.
Well, there are still some issues with the tetrapod steering system. So I'm afraid we're not able to leave just yet.
Then when will you be ready?
Unfortunately, it's going to take longer than a day.
Then I'll go ahead on foot. You can use the drone to guide me.
What? The wasteland is a lot bigger than you think.
I can't just sit here and wait. In fact, I want to see the wasteland with my own eyes.
With my own beautiful brown
Fine,
eyes.
Eve. All right, I'll guide you with the drone.
Eve, please be careful.
Yes, thank you.
The wasteland is that way.
Eve, there's something I didn't tell you. It's about time the drone got an upgrade. Come over here.
What's up?
I want to go to the waste. You just tracked up.
Gimme! Crimson or Cyber Bunny's nice, but Crimson Man has more cleavage showing. I just realized. Anyway, we'll stick with the bunny for now. I should at least try all the outfits, right? Fast travel point. Oh shit, there's more. Jesus Christ. So many fucking missions, man. Let's get them all. God, is this game just side quest central, or am I just a completionist? Who has my side quest? Oh, it's you, because it's green. I can see.
You must be the angel.
Hi, Hugh.
Sorry, but can you spare a moment?
Sure.
What's going on?
I normally wouldn't get a stranger involved in Sentinel's business, but
What?
I'm worried about my comrades. I can't afford
Oh yeah,
to
today's
send
stream
a
might not be
sentinel.
super long. I'm
What
feeling
happened?
very tired and the heat is actually getting
As
to
you
me.
know, Naytibas are
We'll see how long I
unpredictable
go.
creatures. Finding a new variant is not even a big deal, as long as we can handle it. This particular new variant recently appeared in the wasteland.
Oh,
So
sorry.
we've been keeping an eye on
Somehow
it.
my fan was touching my
But
mic.
one of my scout
even though it
teams
shouldn't
has
have
not
been.
returned to Zion yet.
A new variant, you say?
Yes, a formidable monster. Its entire neck and shoulders had evolved into a weapon. I'll send you the coordinates.
Taxorus then.
There's an abandoned oil storage facility in a remote corner of the wasteland. The scout team was guarding the area.
So, you want me to find those sentinels?
Bruh.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. That's not so bad. Next. It'll be you, because you're new. The fuck? That's it? Ooh. Yo, what the fuck? Who the hell are you? Don't look at me like that. I'm a bunny girl, I get it.
How dull.
Bitch, I have a literal bunny suit on and you call me dull? Oh, it's my hair. What do you be? Yep, fashion, the greatest thing about any game.
Hey,
Alright, we need to find hair.
It's you.
Hairstyle to match this outfit now.
what do you mean, dull?
Oh, I guess you heard that. I'm sorry if I offended you, Angel.
You did.
I wasn't asking for an apology.
Oh, fuck.
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to
I
know
keep
why
yawning
you
and I
said that.
apologize.
What is this place?
This is my shop, Gwen Hair Salon. I'm
Short hair?
Sam,
Sure.
the hairstylist.
Hair.
I style your hair so you feel better and confident. Your hair looks great. It's full of potential. But that potential is hidden at the moment. That's why I said it is dull.
Is that so? Are you saying you can make my hair less dull?
Of course. But I don't have the proper tools with me right now.
Fuck.
Those so-called scavengers stole them.
So it's probably back in the wasteland. I have to get all the shit together and then he can
But
fix
then
my
I
hair.
Probably just threw them away. Those tools would be useless to them.
Thrown away?
Hmm.
Where?
Things like that usually end up in the landfill in the wasteland.
Okay. I can look for them.
Like I said, a wasteland.
You will style my hair.
Sounds good to me. I'm missing 3 items: scissors, hair dryer, and hair straightener.
Understood.
I'll be waiting
Also,
here, Angel.
anytime you have like hair customization, I always thought, how do they grow your hair? I understand how they can cut it. That makes a lot of sense. But how do they grow your hair instantly? Like, what kind of black magic do they have to grow your hair in like seconds? Growth formula? I guess. We just don't see how much time actually passes. What's the word? I was gonna say Rogaine. No, not Rogaine. Rogaine's the opposite. Hello there, sir.
Angel, you'll need useful information in order to operate outside of Zion.
Go ahead.
Did you know that there is an information dealer in the city?
I did.
I think it'll be worth it for you to meet that person, despite their character.
Wait, what? Is that all he told me? Yeah, I fucking knew, bro. Kitty! What did it say? Oh. No. I like how all the cats have different names, but they're the exact same kitty picture. Who's these?
Is this it? It was submerged for so long. I wonder if it's still functional.
How are you talking underwater, girl?
I should check it out.
It was against regulations. Speaking of your chambers, there's right here in my room. Superhuman maid, that's why I like you. What the fuck?
What is this?
That's not what that is.
The identification codes match.
It's a steamy novel, that's what that is. Motherfucker lost his fan fiction and it got thrown in the well. Cutscene time. Maybe. It's probably loading, my assumption. Yeah. I was worried the game froze on me. But no, it was probably growing the entire area. Loading the entire area.
This is the largest land I've ever seen in my life.
And yet danger lurks around every corner. Watch your step. If you trip, you might find yourself caught in the arms of death. All right. I've entered the scanned coordinates of Altus Lavoir. Let's go.
Holy shit, what's this? Oh my god, are these all my missions? They are. Also guys, have you guys seen that game that's been going around? Fuck, what was it called? I already forgot.
Camp doesn't have power.
Huh? Let's see.
No, I forgot the name. I was gonna say the name and I forgot
A
it.
good amount of the camp's energy is being supplied
Hang
by
on.
nearby areas. I think there's an issue with the supply network.
What can we do about it?
I'm really going through Twitter when they're talking.
Outside of Zion, there's a solar tower that supports energy links to nearby facilities. It seems like there might be a problem with the tower.
Silver Palace, that's the game.
We're going to have to go in.
I was like, it starts with an S. I couldn't remember. Silver Palace. It's an upcoming gacha game. I'm assuming gacha game. Looks very similar, very reminiscent of a lot of MiHoYo stuff. Not exactly the same, but it looks the same. But apparently people are saying, the people that have done the betas, because it's only in closed betas right now, that it is a lot slower of a game than like the most popular ones out there, which is like WOWW, not Honkai, Genshin, things like that, right? ZZZ. Oh, she's dead. I'll kill you, you hag.
So sad. And all because of a misunderstanding.
like the uniqueness of the setting. I don't know anything about it. I was going to watch Shy Lily play it today because they're the only one that I knew about. I knew that was playing it recently, and I forgot. It's like, what exactly is it? I don't know how to play, by the way. You don't like up more gotcha formula. And my ear pierced. Rip. I mean, the piercing is still there, right? Like your ear is still pierced. You just lost the actual fucking earring or stud or whatever you got. Oops. Unfortunate. Too bad. So sad. Is it not open world? Because it looks open world. Open world to a sense, right? Not to the same degree that like Genshin was. Should I call you a stud? No, I said you lost whatever stud earring you had. God, chill. Shit ain't that deep. Sorry, I was checking the temperature and my fan was telling me 89. It was 85 when I started streaming. Oh yeah, I forgot I got the speed booster now. You just not like the look of it? I'm assuming that you fucking just lost it. You ever see yourself making a fan sleeve? Nope. Maybe a different one, yeah? Exactly. If you don't like the style, you could always get a new one. You could always go back and be like, hey, I don't like this one. Can I get it changed for something of equal value? Most places would probably say, yeah. Could have seen the feel of it. That's a problem. That's an earring. You gotta get used to it. But yeah, making a fancy? Nope. Also Twitch. I'm just saying the name. Doesn't mean I'm promoting it. Probably never. I might be a streamer with fat tits. And I might be a gooner. A little bit of a gooner, but don't mean I'm gonna share that shit publicly and live. That plays game in. That's how I play it. Sensory overload. That's fair. Yeah, I can see that. I gotta heal. I forgot how to play this game already. I need to check my skills. How do I do the parries? Is it the right one? Blue is up circle. Ugh. Which one's the down circle in? Oh, that one. I just don't have it. Does it matter, I guess? This one looks like it's purple. Purple only specifically, and it does that. I could be wrong though. But yeah, to answer your question about the blue site, nah. I might make it just a half one, just, you know, like never, one of those never say never situations. But like, there's like a 99% chance I never do. Because that's just not me. Like, the most I could do realistically is like a Patreon just for any freaky art that I get. Like, hey, I'll paywall it for like $5 a month, and then I'll just get one a month. keep your dignity. No, I don't see it that way at all. I don't look down on any content creator that does not safe for work stuff. Not at all. Oh god. I think it's disingenuous to out. To say someone that does that is losing their dignity. Once you go there and look back, you gotta full commit? Not really. You can always pull it back. People recognize your voice as GG. I mean, same thing as streaming. People can literally learn your voice through anything. I think most P stars are gonna get jobs in the industry. I think that's just a matter of not knowing how to do a regular job. Because like it's a lot different getting told, you know, lay there and, you know, fucking get fucked and shit, you know? It's a lot different than that. Oh god. But also, I don't really pay attention to porn stars to see where they are after they stop doing it. Fuck, man. Like, why am I stuck? Also, I feel like that's just not true because there's a lot of not safe for work actresses that have become, you know, normal, quote unquote, members of society. Fuck, man. But yeah, I still think it's completely disingenuous and just, what's the word, insulting to say, hey, if you go down the porn path, you're just fucked. You know, no pun intended. Okay, I lost all my healing. That's great. It's actually fine. I should heal though before I like actually die. So where do I gotta go? The tower, yeah. This way. I like this music, by the way. Can you guys hear it that well? I think it should be okay, but never know. Fuck you. Stealth. Nothing says stealthy like a bunny suit and a giant sword impaling your back. Fuck you. It's not it? Oh, I thought this was it. Just a random ass pit stop. Oh, does this one work? I'm assuming still no? Yep. Should pop this early. You're not a coward. I'll kick your ass if you say it again. Hell yeah. Self-affirmation, baby. I'm dealing a lot of damage to these guys. I have 5 skill points too, I just realized. Is that what I think it is? It is. It's kinda silly. Alright, is it gonna be a boss battle here though? I think this might be a giant arena.
The solar tower. It looks like this is it.
Who are
The
you?
drone over there. Maybe it can tell us what the problem is.
Who are you, buddy? Beep beep.
Hello. I'm Service 001. Standard service drone.
Hello.
Requesting administrator assistance. An error occurred in Solar Tower Orca A091078CQ.
Okay.
Reboot sequence.
I'm guessing there's an
status.
enemy up there. That's why it's the only reason that it couldn't
Power
reboot.
device malfunction. Requesting administrator assistance. The error cannot be resolved with the current service drone functionality. Stopping power supply to nearby facilities.
He's just telling me what I already know.
Supply camp status inactive. Administrator confirmation required.
Hang on, I can't figure out what you're trying to say. Are you saying that the solar tower cover is damaged?
I am sorry.
Beep.
Service drone. Language
Blurb.
capabilities limited. Cover device requires confirmation from administrator. Resolve error as soon as possible.
Glurp. That's cute. As is that thing. I swear I'm not looking at her ass while I'm doing this. What the fuck? I thought that was an enemy because he was red. How did I know that? Seriously, how did I know that I had to step on these guys? So I'm a fucking platforming genius. Eve! I'm a platforming genius. Eve is not. Oh. I was like, can I just jump to it? Sure can. Oh, please don't fucking kill me. What the fuck? Are we going back down? Glad I noticed this, I think. Yes. Thank God I just didn't just jump off. Oh my god. I bonked my fucking head. Oh my god, a shortcut. What is this? Ooh, exospine.
System error.
System error.
Reboot failed.
There must be some kind of issue with the facility.
Keep going this way, I guess. I'm assuming I keep going up. Expect that jump? Yeah, I can. Okay.
Wait a minute. That...
Who the hell are you? Get him free! God damn, she's strong. Thank you. Beep beep.
Thank you, Administrator. Thank you. System maintenance may now resume.
Good. At least the drone is intact.
Don't fucking die now, Eve. I swear to God. Oh my god. Oh. Fucking terrified of platforming in action RPG games.
System is now all clear. Reboot successful.
Did that solve the problem? I'll have to check it out.
Music just chilled out. Ooh, ooh. Oh my god. terrifying, man. Hello, sir.
Solar Tower reboot sequence completed. Power returned to facility. Status operational. Many thanks to the administrator.
Administrator of the month, yo!
Administrator of the month.
Do you even know what the Administrator of the Month means?
Administrator of the month is Administrator of the month.
They're not wrong.
Solar Tower status normal. All functions available for use. Resuming maintenance tasks.
Great.
Oh yeah.
Now we should be able to use the camp again.
Those things, or, well, the drones. Do you know how long they've been protecting this tower?
I couldn't say, but I'm sure they'll be protected up until the energy runs out.
I'm tired. Like, actually really tired. That was a full skill point and a half that they gave me. Nearest thing is here. That being said, let's look around. Long day? No, not a long day. It's just the heat. It's stifling. You know how it is. I'm pretty sure that's all it is, just the fact that it's really freaking hot, so it's kind of pissing me off. Like, honestly, I probably shouldn't be streaming right now. It is 90 degrees in my room right now. Go rest? No, I'm fine. Like, I'm okay. Like, it's not like unbearable, like dangerous kind of hot. It's just the kind where, like, if I don't keep a fan on me at all times, you know, I'm legitimately just, if I didn't have this fan on me, I probably would not be able to stream. Oh my god. Like, I have 3 fans on my person right now. One behind me, one to my front left, one to my front right. That's why you guys might hear a fan every now and then. Because they're just fans literally, essentially every angle from me. If I didn't have these on, then yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to stream. But it's fine as is. But I'm just yawning just because it's that kind of heat where, like, you'd rather just fall asleep and wake up when it's cooler, you know? I guess one way to explain it is, you know how cats, when it's hot or warm, or like if they're in the sun, they're just gonna fall asleep. It's kind of like that. Wait, what? What do I need this for? I'll have to check it out. What does this do? I'm checking the screen. Does it make the bar move? It does. So I'm missing 1. What is that? Oh, it's the tower. Is it because I died that the other one's not active? Or that I just never find the other one? It's gotta be that up there. You know what I just thought about? Why I'm enjoying this like background music. It reminds me a lot of up there. It reminds me a lot of the Shadowbringers theme. Is it Shadowbringers? Or is it Endwalker? Am I misremembering which theme is where? It is Shadowbringers, right? Yeah, I was like, I'm not misremembering, right? I haven't been not playing the game that long. Ooh. Like, just the theme song, or this music reminds me of it. Very reminiscent to me. Whether people, like, agree with me or not. I think it's just because it's, like, very... The music itself is very calm sounding, but then the vocals itself are very, like, enrapturing, I guess. I kind of want to learn this. That being said, let's go learn some more defensive mechanics. Give me that. I want repulse because I've been thinking about this skill. I'll test it. It's just down circle. It's a backwards dodge. Oh, okay. You have to dodge it at the right time. There you go. Oh, okay. That, then you do this. Start shooting. So anyway, I started blasting. Okay, makes sense. Got it. Whew. Ooh, double dodge? Hell yeah, give me that shit. Why can't I learn this? Like, it's just locked. Go. Oh, this is, I was gonna say, successful execution, that's stealth. That's pretty neat. I'll put that one on, D. The other extra spine. This one. Because, like, that's cool, you know, crit damage and stuff. But I don't know what it means by level 2 combos, level 4 combos. But this one, it's obviously just, you deal a crit and you fucking deal chain lightning. Obviously, eventually, I'll be able to get another one. We're going back to this for now. I feel like it fits this area more. That's just me, though. Alright, I need to find one more of these things to activate. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear it. Like little the guitar with the singing. Just kind of reminds me of it. Which one did I miss? Oh, is it you? Huh? It's you that wants that. Okay, I got it. I know where this thing goes now. Climb! Climb, bitch, climb! Thank you. Oh fucking god, I gotta hack this thing. It looks like, oh, I can't. Oh! I thought this was something else. I didn't realize it was for this. What is that? All that for a drink. Things I do for Eve, man. The things I'll do for a pretty woman. I'll do an entire puzzle just to get her a fucking soft drink. That's a really fast attack. Holy fuck, bro, chill! My guy was out for blood. Goodbye. Where am I going next? Here? Oh, there's a mind map copy. Got it. I also feel like this dress fits best with this particular ponytail. Big damage. Oh, I never grabbed you. Rest. Where am I going? Straight across. It's literally just right there. Oh, it's this motherfucker.
The only living things that I can see on ATBit.
You sound disappointed. It was a catastrophe that mankind brought upon itself.
Alright, so that's all we have here. What's this? Atlas Altus Livoir. That's where I'm trying to go, right? Yeah, so we want to go here is my assumption. That just sends, yeah, it's going back. What's down here? I thought that motherfucker had a gun. I don't want to go over here. Let's not do this yet. Let's go back. What the fuck? It's a squad. Oh my god, chill, please. Not gonna lie, I tried blocking them, didn't really work. Holy fuck, heal. Did a lot of shield damage to me. Love how she just kicks things. What game does that remind me of? What game did the protagonist just fucking kick chests to open them? I'm trying to think. I feel like it was a Square game. I'm not thinking of Breath of the Wild. You know, I do know Link Kingsome there. I'm talking about like he did a full fucking punt. I know what it was. It's a really stupid ow. Fucking dot hack GU. Ow. Fucking Haseo just punts the shit out of chess in that game. That's an name her in a while. I kind of want to play the remake that came out like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, however long ago it was. I fucking loved Dot Hack GU, or not, sorry, not Dot Hack DU, Dot Hack Dusk. Sorry, Dot Hack Roots. I don't know why I was thinking Dusk. I love Dot Hack Roots. I know Haseo was an edgy bitch and it kind of became the bad guy, but I still kind of liked the anime at least. I'll be surprised if people know the Dot Hack series, man. Like, that's a series that has not existed in well over a decade. And it was also never really popular on release. Oh, they haven't played it? Oh! Fun. Box dude, hello, welcome in. Thank you for the raid. Sheesh. Milkers? You mean the ones on screen or the ones on screen? Anyway, hi. Hello, Box dude. Let me give you a shout out. What were you doing? Both, hell yeah. Listen, I'm a fan of Eve before I ended up finishing this game, or playing this game. It's so good. It looks like it's gonna be really good. I am not good at this style of combat, but I'm doing my best. I'm assuming, yeah, I'm assuming you were playing this game, considering you said you just finished it. First playthrough. Ooh, there's also my first playthrough. I honestly wanted to play this game forever, and then what's it called? The sequel, I guess, technically, right? I don't know if it's the sequel, but second game got announced, and I was like, fuck, now I have to play this game so I can be ready for that game. But anyway, yes, hello, if you guys don't know me. Blood Rain, yeah. If you guys don't know me, my name is Rin Kamori. I'm a Dragon VTuber. Sorry if my wings are not on screen. They get in the way. I play a variety of games. Let me turn on my wings. Here's my wings. I play a variety of games, primarily focused on retro. And I do probably one new game at a time. So you'll see some old stuff and a lot of pretty good chunk of new stuff. But for the most part, if you guys like a cozy environment with one pair, if not two, in the case of this game, of fat milkers, you're welcome to stick around. Box dude, thank you for the raid. No spoilers on the ending. You saying the ending is crazy is fine. Careful. I like being spoiler free. What was I talking about before you came in? What was I talking about? I already forgot. I jump from topic to topic pretty easily. Oh, I was talking about dot hack roots, the dot hack series. If anybody knows about the dot hack series, congratulations, you're as old as I am. If you don't know about the dot hack series, congratulations, you're young, or just didn't care much about that particular part of the anime internet. Auntie, maybe. I am Unk status. I am only 33, but I am Unk status. If you guys don't know dot hack, it is what Sword Art should have been. And by that I mean less incest, more about the actual game. Is that a final combo? Oh. What is this? Perfect dodge, don't care. Don't care. I think I just hold my skill points for now. Yeah, we'll just hold them for now. Incest is incest to a degree. I don't disagree. In fiction, yes. We go this way. So we go this way. Fuck are these long neck dudes? I'm not about to find out. Beep.
Hello. I'd like to inform you that my mobility is limited due to an accident. I kindly ask for your assistance.
Ooh.
What? Who's communicating in the airborne squad channel?
Oh, up there. Cool.
Give me a sec. I'll check. It doesn't seem to have been intentional. The signal's being broadcast across several frequencies. In any case, it's... I know what this is. The source of the signal should be at the dump site north of the scrap plains.
I don't climb this.
You're gonna love this. It certainly wouldn't hurt to check it out. That is, if you're feeling inclined toward a little neighborly help.
Neighborly help. Hello, neighbors. Hey, chef. Oh, you bitch. You attacked faster than I thought. I have a long way to go. Oh, yeah. No, I am fresh in this game. Yeah. Ow. Ow. But yeah, I'm not very good at this game, so forgive me if you see me just getting my ass kicked. I swear I pressed the button there, but it might have just been a hit stun. Oh yeah, I forgot I have a jump attack too. Forgot I have that. That might be my problem, is I'm not using all of my skills. Listen, this is one of the few games that I've seen people talk about where they do talk about how gorgeous the protagonist is, because yes, Eve is fucking gorgeous and all of her outfits are peak. But at the same time, people also say this is fucking good. I think a fucking... The fuck is a gun? Oh, you do. Oh, that was a good dodge. I'm dead. I was stunned. Hi, Tano. Shorter stream, yes. Fuck you. Assholes. Probably shouldn't have wasted the WB pump, but I was like, nah, I'm not about to fucking let these guys take me out. I need a rest stop though. How are you doing though, Tano? How's your Friday? How's everybody's Friday? Including you guys who rated it. Anybody got plans for the weekend? You bitch. I dodged. Fuck, man. This is way too long. I'm gonna go this way. It's probably easier. Bitches. Oh my god, there's a motherfucker behind me. You fucking serious, bro? Oh my god, I fucking pressed the button. I'm just fucking dead here. Nah, bitch. Asshole. Really? Touched everything with the last pitiful hit. Oh. I stealth you. Sure can. Fuck you. Warp point. That might actually be useful. Warp back to heal. Warp here then? Maybe? That'd be smart? That might be pretty smart actually. Might be kind of genius. Might be kind of genius actually. Guys, would you still love me if I was a worm? Sorry, it's a really stupid comment. All my healing items I have? Nothing's under, perfect. Let's go back. Obviously the two dudes are gonna be back in front of my face, but should be able to beat them now with full health. Swear to God, if I fucking die. Oh, dude, it's a fucking patrol. There's two of them guaranteed. Nice, saw me. I have no slugs. I should buy more. We're trying to go straight across here to the patrol, apparently. I pressed the wrong button, but it works. We fail our way to victory. I just realized we're gonna turn off my fucking blue light filter every time. You might be thinking, why don't you just keep it off forever? Because I actually like the blue light filter at night, because it makes the screen not so fucking blue. That's the point of it. Makes my eyes not hurt at night. Imagine. Here? How do I get in? Like, open the door. Open the door. Open the door. I can't open the door. Gotta go around and underground. Oh. Morning, Aaron. Hi, Ingram. How you doing? Yeah. The compound. Blah, blah. If I found an entry corp, that'd be like winning the lottery. Fucking pervert. Maybe from here? You're sleepy? How are you? I'm also sleepy, but that's because it's fucking really hot. I forget if UK only uses Celsius, but if it does, it's like 28, 29 degrees in my room right now. Maybe 30. I think the number's more 29, but yeah, it's not nice. It's just that kind of exhausting heat that I'm dealing with. Why am I streaming? I don't know, because I want to. Heat and all that. Yep. Oh god. Yes, it is very uncomfortable. Like I forget. I think for the most part it's only, what is it? It's like the US and like 2 island nations, I think, that might use Fahrenheit. Something weird like that. Like it's too weird at like 2 or 3 other weird countries. What did that do? Is it a timer? I gotta run. I'm assuming it's a timer. Oh my god. First of all, that did more damage than I thought. Second of all, I didn't realize I was so low on health. Are you fucking serious? I know why I revived here too. Yeah, the UK does use a weird mix of both, that's why I brought it up. I dodged, but I guess I dodged into it rather than out of it. Yeah, because doesn't the UK... Some of the UK uses meters and some of it uses, like, actually uses feet? Oh god. Miles for driving. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's weird. Wait, what? Oh, genius. Yeah, it's weird. So, like, even though you guys could use meters and centimeters and everything for everything, you guys still use inches for height, but it's strange. That's why the UK is weird. I think it's the same thing for, I think Canada. I think it's the same thing. Daily hell yeah. It's not an actual counter, by the way. It's literally just there because, I don't know, I just wanted it to be. I gotta heal. Alright, so I think I don't have to go fast. I'm assuming this isn't timed, and I just got my ass kicked because it's not timed and I tried to just go fast. Get away! I did dodge. I thought I didn't. Oh my god, it is timed. I'm fucking dumb. Bro, how's this thing still targeting me? Fucking hell, man. It is timed. Oh, what the fuck? Did enemies like despawn because I was doing this event? Speed booster is activated. Oh yeah, speaking of, not speed boosters, but just speaking of, any of you guys gonna go watch new Spider-Man next week? I might, which means next Friday I might not end up streaming depending on when I get tickets. Go, 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 go. I saw that coming. Eve, climb, you fucking bitch. Sorry. She didn't jump when I told her to. Where'd you come from, buddy? You weren't there before. Really want to see where we go in a few weeks from the family time. That's fair enough. Wait, what? Where am I in combat with? You. Gotta dodge spoilers for a while. Damn, you might not watch my stream then. I'm good. 100% gonna spoil the movie. I'm just kidding, by the way. I hate spoilers. When it comes to movies or games or whatever, anything, I tend to... I'll give it like a month. Maybe 3 weeks, give or take. Because like if you're gonna watch something, then you're already, you know, then you're gonna try to watch it ASAP. How the fuck did that kill me? I had like full health. I know I didn't have full health. I had like 75% health or something. What the fuck? Oh, you fucking died real quick. Oh, this motherfucker see me. Hi. Missed. My shield broke. Most people give spoiler warnings. Yeah. You can flee in terror. You're a dragon. You don't flee in terror. You probably just go la 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 la, not listening. La 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 la. This thing better be fucking worth it. If it's not, I'm gonna be pissed. You cannot burn spoilers, so you must. Yeah, that's fair. Oh my god, I got lucky there. That probably done literally 1 health. Got it. Stay away. I like how they give you this just so you don't fucking die. Don't fall, bitch. Alright, what did this give me? The things I do for E for a fucking beer. Funny thing is, they're not all beers. Some of them are. This one was. Some of them are electrolyte drinks. as Lily told us back in Zion. That one was a beer. It's a fucking lager. Things I do for a beautiful woman. Don't activate your speed booster. Surprisingly, I don't want it. Passcode? What the fuck? I'm assuming somebody will give me the passcode in the oil facility or whatever. It's gotta be it, right? Yep. Don't fall, please. Thank you. Imagine Tyra walking in these heels. Where the fuck do I go? There? Where do I go? Pretty sure I can't climb up. Fuck is that? Is it over there? I really can't tell. I think it's gonna be not there. Fucking hell. That's not what I wanted, but that's fine. Get to look at her fucking fat cheeks as she walks. It's fine. I say fat, but you know, they're just exposed. That's all it is. She is thick, but she's not fat. Can I climb up? No. I don't have like a grappling hook, right? If I fail here, I think I just die. Assuming it's this. I was right. I assumed it was that, but I was like, it doesn't look right, but I was like, I didn't give it a shot, but that's fine. Open the door. That way, if I die, we're good. I should heal, because my assumption is there might be an enemy around here.
This is the place, isn't it?
I don't see any sentinels. They're supposed to be guarding the area. Where are they?
I'm not sure. Let's look around.
Oh, sentinels, where are you? It's gone. Oh, so I saw one. He might have running 3 ships, just keep tabs on a monster. Man, must be losing his mind. Ugh. System, there go. What's up? What do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. He fucking died. Zero exceptions, nothing usual. Zero exceptions. The marked native cannot be visually identified. Oh. Uh-oh. Sorry. Bye. Did I not see you? I really didn't see you earlier. Up, you goddamn idiot. It's up there. Up.
These people.
Could this be the surveillance team that lost contact? They're completely mangled.
Go up.
Then where is the Natiba?
Oh, it's you again. Oh, fuck. I don't have the health for this.
Look!
I do not have the health for this. I dodged, but I didn't dodge. Fuck. Do I gotta go the long? I don't think I have to go the long way. Oh. Oh, merciful heaven. I lost my other healing items, but merciful heaven.
Look!
I thought I pressed the dodge button. Apparently not. Oh. I was trying to heal. I was stuck in an animation. Fuck. I already lost my rhythm on this guy. I whooped his ass the first time, but it's been way too long since I fought him and played this game. Oh, should be okay soon though. I just gotta keep practicing, get back in the rhythm. I dodged, but apparently not. The fuck, man? Asshole. I try to press it. Jesus. I didn't press it in time. Holy ball sacks. Okay. Reminds me of Guardian from Sekiro. I mean, I think he is, like, obviously based on a monkey. So, like, it's not even probably that he's based off Guardian Ape or anything like that, right? He's just based on a fucking monkey. It's just the way a monkey would fight. And I'm just not used to it yet. I fought him twice. Once was 1 month ago. I dodged, but I didn't do the good dodge. It's fine. Okay, that's fun. Ow. Thought he had one more hit coming, he didn't. no extra heals too. Yeah, that's what Monkey does. Trying to figure out what I can block and what I can't. The answer is obviously I can't block pretty much anything. Well, that doesn't even do bonus damage. Oh, because he's entering second phase. That's what's going on. I'm stupid. Oh, I'm dead. I have no bonus, or I don't healing, so I was like, I'm not gonna survive this. Ugh, he has more health than I remember from the first time I fought him.
Look.
I guess I could technically leave and buy more healing items, but that's just kind of annoying. Brother! I suck at this game. Also because I can't fucking see what he's doing half the time. He's just off fucking camera. That attacks a lot faster than I thought it would. Holy shit. I'm gonna dash at him, but it's not actually registering. Okay. Oh, I guess I pressed the dodge button wrong time. Okay. I think I understand why I can't do the dash attack very much. I just realized it's the attack above my hotbar on the right, which you guys probably can't see. Yeah, it is. Brother, stop fucking doing that attack, because you just fucking run away. I pressed the button wrong, apparently. That did a lot of fucking damage. I don't know how much health I had, but I'm pretty sure I had more than like 30%. Best attempt so far. I'm getting a little better. I'm getting back in the hang of how to parry. Woohoo, baby! That one I wasn't ready for, apparently. Careful, Eve. Don't fucking die now. I dodged, but apparently I was off timing. There's a fucking invisible wall, that's why. I was in the air, so I couldn't actually parry him. I dodged into his attack. Guy has a lot of health too. What the fuck happened to that box?
Look!
I didn't realize that he was attacking me then. Brother, your attacks are way too hard to register. I dodged, but apparently not. Getting mildly annoyed at the fact that I just can't seem to break a combo to parry. So every time I try, I just fucking get hit.
Look!
Feels like this game wants you to combo, but then it also doesn't. I still can never get this first opening right, so I just take free 35% fucking damage. You. I was in the middle of an attack, I couldn't fucking dodge. Again. That time I was in the middle of healing. Fuck. Get out of my face. Oh shit. I don't know how I can actually... I can't figure out that attack. That like 5 combo hit? I don't understand that yet. Because like half of it I can't block, the other half I can. I don't know if I dodged that or if I was just out of range. That one I definitely didn't dodge. Oh, I tried to shoot the thing and it didn't work. Dodge that, I couldn't either. Okay, that's fair. That's fun. Fuck you. Cool. Just can't fucking dodge that. I don't know when he does a second hit or not. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. I just realized the volume's a little loud too. Let me turn it down a little bit. It was reaching speaking volume levels. I think we both hit each other there. See, now I can see when he does the second attack. Sometimes I can't. Wonderful. Just took free damage to try and break his combo. What the fuck happened? I pressed fucking dodge. I was doing so good there. I should honestly go back and get more healing, but I'm invested. I should be able to do this as is. If I don't take fucking all half my health first fucking attack. I also believe it's just annoying because I hate enemies that just like, I'm gonna punch you once and run away. Like that one was already, like that one I kind of gave up on because I didn't dodge any of the initial attack. Fucking asshole. Nice, hilarious. gorgeous. I'm not gorgeous. Look at this fucking monkey. This monkey's the gorgeous one. Monkey. I didn't dodge in time. I think I pressed it too early. I couldn't get the next dodge in time. Start off so well until this motherfucker decides I'm just gonna do the unblockable attacks like 4 times in a row like he's doing. Yeah, I just fucking died because he just decided I'm just gonna do 4 unblockable moves in a row. And if you don't dodge me, you're just taking 80% of your health. Wonderful. Can't fucking time that yet. Man, fuck you, man. Fuck. It's actually pissing me the fuck off, bro. Every time I get a fucking good combo on him, he just decides, nah, I'm just gonna jump 500 feet away from you. Like that, man. I didn't get hit, but I didn't do the dodge. I was like, I'm not fucking gonna let this guy get one on me right at the end. Fuck you, dick.
Hey, you alright?
I'm fine.
Is this a subspecies of what we encountered in 807?
Fucking asshole.
What's it doing here?
Get my fucking eye, get my loot, motherfucker.
I hate to deliver bad news,
Get my fucking loot.
but I'll have to tell him.
She's the go. Nah, I'm not even. I fucking suck at this game. I need to get better. I won. I need to get better. Thank you for the hydrate. I did just drink a little bit right now. Did everything respawn too? Do I have to fight all these fuckers again? No, I don't, thankfully. Hope I do. So you're my next target. What is that? Thank you guys. I'm not actually upset. I'm a little tilted just because I hate being bad at a video game. You know, obviously everybody's bad at some point. I don't know. I hate when it's sometimes I feel like it's not up to me whether I win or lose sometimes. Obviously it just means I'm not good enough. It's a skill issue quite literally. But sometimes I feel like I'm in impossible situations in like games like these. I will say this exact situation is sort of the reason I quit Resident Evil 4, the remake, for a while, for basically a year. When I first played it in 2024, I think? 2020, maybe 2023. I think it was 2023. It was the cabin scene. I don't know why that one took me so long, it would give me so much trouble, but it did. And then I played the game just the one day. I think I played it for like 3 days. 2 days maybe. And then I never touched it again until a year later. Then I was like, alright, fuck it, we're gonna finish it. And then I liked it. Obviously, I like the original. I'm just saying, like, that game pissed me off, so I put it down. And thinking about it, I was like, this is kind of the same feeling I had, but I don't think I'm gonna quit just because I feel like I'm better at this game than I would be at Resident Evil just because I suck at shooters like that much. I feel like this game, the mechanics that I know will translate well. Where am I going? Straight across to my left. Over here. Well, not over here, but this will give me a heal point to get all my shit back. Games are gonna be fun. Yeah, exactly. That was my main thing. Any game that I put down and not come back to, a lot of times I just haven't been having fun. There's very few that I haven't had fun with to keep playing. Sometimes I just forget. I'll buy this. I understand, it's literally just hold the button. I don't know the combos by heart, so I just have to remember what the combo chains are. What was I trying to get? Oh, this one. Make the dodge skills easier to use. This outfit's pretty cute. But I think I'm gonna get for the swimsuit next. Oh, or the cybernetic dress, I don't know. They're both nice. Oops, wrong way. Oh, it is inside. I thought it was outside. It's you. Oh, I might stop streaming right now.
Hello.
Since I'm at a safe spot. Digger.
As you can see, I've been involved in an accident. I kindly request your assistance.
Cute.
I don't think I should attack this drone. Smaller drones don't usually have a language system installed. What's going on here?
I told you were gonna like this.
I'm currently incapable of projected conversation. Energy levels low. I will remain unable to escape unless you...
What about the random dubstep in the background?
Claw crane system. Please operate the ticker, buzzer, and clunker in that order. They're located
Ticker, buzzer,
here in this
clunker. Am I
website.
playing a fucking
I
claw
kindly
machine?
request your assistance.
All right.
Sorry. Wanted to sit down on this dirty ass couch. So where am I trying to go? I guess we're going up? You're an ally or an enemy? What are you, buddy? Spotter. Eve, please grab the thing. Eve, please grab the thing. Grab the thing. Grab the thing. I know. I'm assuming you can't do that. Feels like you should be able to, though. Can't you grab that, though? So it's kind of like a puzzle, but not like in the fun way, because you're kind of just told, I don't know, figure it out. Eve, just pull it where I'm trying to fucking make you pull it. Jesus Christ, girl. Bring it around. You're good. Keep going. You're good. I realized I was holding the R2, making it rotate instead of move. Girl, what are you doing? Eve? Just stop. What is this? Is it this? Oh, it is. I'm assuming I need to bring this in here. It's the only reason this would go down. What'd that do? No idea what that did. Why would I bring this up here? Why would I bring that up there? There's no reason to bring that up there, right? Oh, just puts it down. I'm dumb. I'm being a little stupid. Forgive me. What is this thing? Whatever. there. Up there. Yeah, it's just a puzzle. That's all it is. It's kind of funny. The game's like, hey, each one puts it down halfway. It's a fucking Zelda puzzle, bro. Actually, it's just a fucking Zelda puzzle. With kind of clunkier controls, if that makes sense. It feels like the game is not designed for this. I think I'm in the wrong area. Hell yeah. The last one it? Way away from me. Up there, okay, I see it. Thanks for the yellow paint game, like actually. Like I know people get pissed about yellow paint, but like I would not have known you can climb this if the game didn't highlight it at first.
Something seem off to you?
You must have gotten the order wrong.
Fuck, bro.
What was it again? Ticker?
I wish I knew what they were called.
Clunker?
Confirmed.
Do I know which is which? I don't fucking know. I need pictures. Uh-oh. Talk to him again. Tell me where to go first. I noticed where they were, but I just forgot. Sir, show me pictures of the other.
Remaining energy. You must operate the ticker, buzzer, and clunker in that order to reset the clock ring. Thank you for your continued humanitarian...
Pictures? Pictures?
You must operate the ticker, buzzer, and...
Ticker, buzzer, clunker. I don't fucking know what they're called. Brother! Clunker's the last one for sure. I have an idea. I think this one's the ticker. Obviously it's based on the noise they make. The clunker's the claw right at the end, is my assumption. Eve, please? No? Eve, can you move? Eve, can you fucking move? Jesus Christ, girl. Fucking listen. Assuming this is the ticker. Oh my god, there's fucking clocks there, of course it is. That upsets me. I literally just noticed the grandfather clocks. So then this is the buzzer? How would this one be the buzzer? This is not the clunker, right? I think the clunker's a claw. Whatever, this is the wrong order. I'm just gonna do the same thing, but mix these two particular ones. Wrong button. There we go. Yeah, I figured this was the end because this is the fucking claw. Oh god, he's stuck. fuck is he?
I can't believe this flimsy thing is still working. What a relief.
Looks like you're right. Well then, how about we go check on that drone?
Damn. Jeez. Goddamn beautiful. Sorry, don't mind me. Hello, sir.
Thank you so much for your help. Hello, Adam. It has been some time. Would you kindly introduce me to this lady?
Of course. What's the word? Oh yeah, Angel.
Angel. That's the unofficial name for members of the Eve Airborne Squad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Eve. What happened to you? Drones like you aren't supposed to work this way.
Hello, Eve. I am Digger. I have innumerable thoughts concerning my existence, and I am capable of making fantastic plans.
I told you this would be fun. You see what I mean?
Adam, please don't interrupt. Eve, someday I would appreciate the opportunity to sit
Just laser cue you.
and share with you my fantabulous hypothesis. I thank you again for your assistance. May our relationship continue to prove constructive.
You're welcome.
I am willing to provide useful resources.
Okay.
Okay.
Like purchase? Or is it like a compatriot? A lot of good stuff. Does he sell things for me?
A particularly unique drone, Digger.
Do you mean that in a good way or a bad way?
Well, maybe neither, exactly. What happened to make you like this?
I don't know.
I don't
At some
know.
point, the IoT in the network suddenly went offline.
I don't know.
And at that moment, the quantum brains limiter was released.
Can something like that happen?
Apparently. Anyway,
I pressed the wrong button. I almost
for
opened up
me,
Uma in
my
my
existence
on my
is
phone.
the greatest question. Typically, I use the time I spend cleaning the environment to consider the question of myself.
Sure. What do you got for me? Friends and merchant? Yep, just use them a lot. Weapon. Oh. Oh. What's an omnivore and penny gear sockets? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Gimme. I think these look better actually. Conspiracies. Buy, but don't equip. This is just straight up a novel, by the way. Can't buy any of this stuff though. You can buy that. Might as well buy it. Damaged weapon core. I wonder where that comes from.
Goodbye, Eve.
You're welcome. Bye.
Are you satisfied?
Absolutely.
Yes, something like that.
Alrighty. Get back to camp. Fuck, did I get back to camp? I saw something over here that's orange. Object. Oh, it's that thing. Never mind, we're good. Hell yeah, I have glasses now. Just like me. Just earrings too? Oh my god. let's rest, let's save the game, and we'll finish up for the night. Stream was almost 3 hours long still. Probably shouldn't have done that. Oh my god, my room just got hotter even though it's much later at night. Last save 12 seconds ago. We're good. Perfect. Let's finish up. Let's go back over here. Let me get my music on. Give me a second. Okay. Let me turn off my game. We will be done for the week, guys. Unfortunately so. Sorry, its stream is a tiny bit shorter than usual. Alrighty, next week. How's the weather looking like next week? Let me see something. Yeah, I love this song. It's really good, chill, relaxing music. Next week, weather is not the same as this week, but not as hot, surprisingly. I gotta check the future forecast. I'm only seeing till Wednesday. I just want to see what the schedule might end up being next week. Okay, so I think based on what I'm seeing from the forecast next week, I will probably be streaming Wednesday, Thursday. I might set the time for a little bit later just because it is gonna be about as warm as it was this week next week. So look forward to that. And I think next Friday I might take it off because first of all, it's gonna be much hotter, probably about 5 degrees warmer that weekend. So I think what I'm gonna do is take the day to myself. Plus, I do plan on watching Spider-Man, so I might try to avoid the heat by going to the movies. Yeah, that might be what I end up doing. So I think that's gonna be the idea for next week. What's the week after? The week after that? Oh yeah, we go. Yeah. But yeah, we will go for that next week. But I'll catch you guys. I'll post the schedule on Twitter and Discord, okay? I'm gonna go cool the fuck off, maybe take a cold shower, and relax and get in bed, okay? I will catch you guys again next week, okay? Hopefully it doesn't get hotter than it's expected to be. So, I'll keep you guys posted, okay? You guys have a good night, and see you next week, okay? Bye!